Thank you for the introduction, Tanzan, and thank you to you and to Nexii for inviting me to do this webinar. Welcome, everyone. I hope you'll find the presentation interesting and useful. Apologies. For some reason, every time this webinar starts, my PowerPoint stops. One moment. Right, let's see if we can move forward now. As Tamsin said, M-CRIL was established in 1998 essentially to promote transparency and facilitate the flow of funds into socially relevant development activities, of which microfinance was a major part at that time, and continued to be over the next few years. M-CRIL has undertaken a large number of performance ratings, and actually, in terms of number of ratings of microfinance and other impact enterprise assessments, we're probably the largest in the world, having done the most ratings. We've covered all kinds of institutions, commercial banks with microfinance portfolios, non-bank finance institutions, other impact enterprises, and village-level funds. And we've worked in 32 countries. You can see in the map there, there are some of the countries that we've covered. There are 2 or 3 in Europe as well, but there's a smaller one, so you can't see them so easily: Belgium, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. The range of our services, we, of course, rate microfinance institutions, do performance ratings of those, but we also rate social enterprises and look at the social relevance of these enterprises along with their financial and technical feasibility. We undertake ratings of microfinance investment funds, so that's really the next level up from MFIs. We're looking at the funds that invest in those MFIs. This is essentially for the primary investor, but I'll be talking about that later. And we've done ratings of value chain promotion programs, of NGOs engaged in community development. We're interested in low-cost private schools and have done significant, in fact, over 500 ratings of those, and we're getting involved in some government programs in India to do quality assessment of low-cost both public and private schools. So we have a substantial interest in the whole area of impact investment. Clients, we've worked for all the key donor institutions and some major Asian and African development organizations as well. We're associated with all the leading international funds which affect ratings. We were earlier associated with the CGAP Rating Fund, currently with the Rating Initiative, which is based in Luxembourg. We're part of the African Microfinance Transparency Forum, and we contribute to the SMART campaign, the Microcredit Summit campaign, and so on. What's more important is our approach. We use a comprehensive rating tool which broadly consists of 4 categories of indicators, so looking at governance, looking at the quality of management, at the financial performance of these institutions, and importantly at the production parameters, technology, and marketing, which affects the overall performance of such enterprises. Our reports are based on Our reports are based on fairly detailed data analysis that we collect from the institution, but importantly, we undertake field visits as a part of every rating. That means that we aim to collect feedback from customers and from the staff of impact enterprises at the field level, so as to understand the relationship between the customer and the enterprise, because we think that's crucially important to the future of such initiatives. Based on our field interaction and data analysis, we prepare a draft report, which is then returned to the enterprise that we've rated to enable them to give us their feedback, which is then considered by our rating committee, which is not an internal one, unlike most rating agencies. We have independent experts on our rating committee. The idea being to have an outside opinion as well, apart from our own rating teams, and to have experts who can relate our views to benchmarks and analysis norms that we're using. And it's only after there's agreement between our professional team and the external rating committee that a report is released. So, it considers the comments of the rated enterprise, it considers the opinions of the rating committee, and of course, it looks at the detailed analysis done by the rating team. So we have a fairly thorough review and validation process, and that includes for particular assignments where we've been asked to do so. It includes making investment recommendations, provided that's something that the client wants. Sorry, this has got stuck again. Okay. This slide gives you an idea of our rating process. It's more or less what I've just described to you. There's the initial work in our office, looking at background information. There's the work at the enterprise, at the microfinance institution, and then and that's always by a team of 2 analysts. We never send one person for a rating because we like the we like to have two opinions or 2 people to make the assessment, and we feel that a single person can sometimes miss aspects of an organization's functioning, which is not desirable. And then the data analysis and report writing, as I've just described, is done back at our office. The 2 key things that have happened as a result, or partly as a result of ratings, is that more and more funds have started to flow into impact enterprises, and of course, mainly so far into microfinance, which partly because of this flow of funds has enabled MFIs to reach something like 100 million families worldwide. And we feel that the availability of a professional due diligence service like ratings will help to pull in more funds into other impact enterprise sectors as well. But it's not just about money, it's also about best practice in management. So one of the things that a rating does, or the way it can be seen, is that it's effectively a management consultancy report. It gives the enterprise an idea of how well they're doing. it benchmarks their performance against other similar enterprises. and it enables them, therefore, to improve their management systems and their functioning. And of course, the wider outreach of this type of enterprise has resulted in the availability of downscale products and services in areas which are otherwise difficult to reach and where commercial enterprises often don't go, and also to segments of the population that commercial enterprises ignore because they don't regard marketing to such segments of the population as being profitable and remunerative. There is the flip side of it as well, that one of the results of having such a large sum of money available for microfinance, for instance, led to unbridled growth in microfinance, at least in some places, a race for numbers in outreach and lending, which became an end in itself for some institutions. Size was everything, and performance was pushed into the background. So that has resulted in, as most of you know, in over-indebtedness and repayment problems in pockets in various parts of the world. And the other aspect is that I talked about the professionalization of management, but it's not always successful. If you bring in professional managers into a development type situation, many of them do very well, but there are others who don't quite understand that there is a degree of empathy necessary in serving low-income populations, and that can lead to unsustainable efficiency improvements. Like again, we've seen in microfinance, where one year a loan officer was serving 200 and 300 clients, and the next year was expected to serve, let's say, 500 clients. Naturally, that results in a breakdown in the relationship between the enterprise and the customer. If a loan officer is running around trying to serve too many clients, then he doesn't have time for any one of them anymore. And also, the search for efficiency can also result in products and services that are not necessarily appropriate. You know, the wrong sort of energy equipment just because it's easy to supply, the wrong microfinance product just because it's easy to implement. It becomes a supply-driven model when you're focusing purely on efficiency. The relationship with the customer and the appropriateness of the product are both extremely important, and these are areas that are of concern for us when we do our impact ratings. So that's looking at the impact enterprises, but we also look at, as I said earlier, at impact investment funds, which is the next level up from the enterprise. The investment fund is the one that aggregates money from primary investors and then channels it into impact enterprises. Now, traditionally, it's been assumed that the impact investment fund does not need to be rated because the kind of people who are primary investors into such funds have the technical knowledge to be able to understand what the fund is doing. Actually, that's usually not so. The fund will often be based in a developed country, and the primary investor will also be in a developed country and not necessarily aware of the conditions in less developed countries where the investment fund is putting its money. So one of the benefits of our rating of such funds is that it makes knowledge and understanding of the performance of the investment fund in relation to its investments in less developed countries. It makes that information available to the primary investor and can therefore help to pull in money. Anyone who's interested can look at the INCOFIN website, incofin.pe, that's one of our ratings of impact investment funds, which is available in the public domain, and you can see the areas that we cover. The essential objective, as I said, is to enable primary investors more easily to understand the investment and risk profile of such funds. So to conclude my presentation, essentially what our ratings of impact enterprises do is to facilitate due diligence to enable investors to make better decisions. Our ratings provide a basis for comparison with alternative investments and therefore enable investors to take in relation to other similar enterprises. So we identify strengths and weaknesses, we enable the impact enterprise to improve its performance thereby, and of course one of the things the rating does is to facilitate greatly the process of sourcing additional investments, because the availability of a professional due diligence service is something that is of value to investors who don't necessarily understand the conditions in which impact enterprises operate. So where we believe that ratings represent a positive opportunity for improving the functioning of impact enterprises and also enhancing investments in them. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. So again, there are a couple of questions here which I'm going to go through now. But just if anybody does have a question, please remember there's a question panel on the right-hand side. If you just put your question in there rather than in the chat side, we can get them. Sanjay, one of the first questions here is, what is covered in a rating in terms of demonstrating or confirming the impact, the social environmental purpose of a company, and is that a priority?
Yes, it is. We start by looking at the objectives of the company, and to the extent that those objectives have a social or an impact-related content, that becomes an important part of the indicators that we look at. So if positive environmental impact is one of the objectives of the enterprise, then that's an area that we will look at in some detail. Many of the impact enterprises that we assess have something to do with serving low-income customers in their mission statements, and in that situation, we look at the extent to which their customers truly are low-income people in a given country context. So we take the impact implications of an enterprise's operations very seriously in our ratings.
And is there any understanding of the key indicators to determine credit worthiness?
Of an MFI or an impact enterprise? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly. So that, of course, looking at its financials is extremely important. What it's done in the past, what systems it has in place for ensuring that it runs as efficiently as possible. But also, as I said, I think it's important when it comes to determining credit worthiness to look at an enterprise's relationships with its customers, because ultimately it's only the generation of revenue from customers that enables an enterprise to be successful in the long run. And of course, we do also look at the cost side of things to ensure that that the institution is covering its costs, because that ultimately is what determines creditworthiness.
Another question here. Have you seen different trends evident in practices and impact achieved in the different regions you're working in?
Trends and practices in the different regions that we're working in. Yes. In terms of the numbers of ratings that we've done, the major sector obviously is microfinance, and there, yes, you certainly see trends. The cost structures in South Asia, for instance, are very different from those in East Africa. Partly as a result, the interest rates that are charged by microfinance institutions are much lower in South Asia than there are in East Africa, but also in other regions of the world. So South Asia has the lowest cost structure and the lowest interest rate structure, and the changes in efficiency have been quite significant over the past few years. But also, of course, everyone knows about the crisis in Indian microfinance, which resulted, in my view, partly from trying to be over-efficient. In other words, the relationship between trying to cover so many clients with one loan officer that the relationship between the enterprise and the customer actually broke down, and that's where the problem occurred.
Okay, another question here on what is the size of the companies that are normally rated, both in terms of revenue and employees, etc.?
The size of the companies can range from, in terms of employees, from 10 employees to, in the case of SKS Microfinance, 20,000 employees. Our concern, our knowledge, our specialization is related to the objectives of the company. It's impact enterprises that we rate, and the size is almost, obviously it's something that we take into account when we're doing the rating, but it's not what determines whether or not we rate an enterprise.
So another question similar to what we discussed this morning is, are there criteria or indicators available for organizations to self-evaluate and improve themselves, or do they have to have a full rating done by M-CRIL? And does the M-CRIL rating set up systems to collect information moving forward?
Yes. Two things. One is that when you look at our ratings, and you can look at some of them on our website, you can see that there are certain benchmarks, and so you can compare the operations of your enterprise in relation to those benchmarks. But the other side of it is that the experience of going through a rating, enterprises have told us, is an extremely valuable one, because it makes them look at every aspect of their functioning. And once you have one of our rating reports with you, the following year or 2 years later, you can look back at what we said in our rating report and try to judge what your institution is doing at that later point in time, and compare the two. So in a sense, that provides you with a baseline to compare your performance with. On the other hand, there are organizations that do commission ratings. On an average, it's about every 18 months, but sometimes it's even on an annual basis.
Another question that would say, it seems as if the quality of relationships between MFIs and their clients are very important. In your rating process, do you specifically measure stakeholder relationships And if yes, what is your theoretical point of departure, or what framework do you use for that?
A significant part of any rating exercise is about judgment. And what enables us to make judgments is not objective measures, because there can't be an objective measure of a relationship. But where it comes from is our experience with large numbers of institutions and the experience of our rating teams from the discussions that take place within the office. So they gradually develop a feel for what is a reasonably good relationship and what is not. I believe over time that this is something that is actually one of M-CRIL's strengths, being able to judge those relationships between customers and enterprises, and being able to at least to identify the institutions that are not doing well and who need to take corrective action fairly soon in order to improve their operation.
Can you talk a little bit more about how the M-CRIL rating relates to other tools that are in use, like SROI or the PPI or the IRIS indicators?
Yes, the M-CRIL rating of impact enterprises is certainly something that is fairly closely related to the IRIS tool. In fact, we contributed to the development of the IRIS tool in our small way. They're actually, all of these tools are very similar. The PPI is a much more specialized, specific tool. It's about enabling you to measure depth of outreach, meaning outreach to clients at particular levels of income. So that's a tool which can be incorporated within our rating tool. Usually when an organization or enterprise says that they are there to serve low-income clients, we will try to apply the PPI tool to determine whether they're actually serving customers at the lower income levels, meaning below certain poverty lines, to $2 a day, $1.25 a day, and so on, and provide feedback on whether this is actually happening. But that's only one part of the rating exercise. Other parts I've talked about. It's about management systems. It's about financial performance. It's about relationships between customers and enterprise. It's about the strategy of the institution in relation to its competitors as well. Often that can be an issue, and it's about it could be about its environmental impact as well.
Okay, what are the actual rating classes of rating that organizations get, and to what extent are investors warned, for example, of the SKS issue in the rating? Is there a kind of rating that demonstrates precautionary as opposed to one that's maybe a stronger recommendation? How do you actually phrase that ladder, if you like?
Yeah, normally in our rating report, that's something you'll find up front. There's something that I think the third page of our report is marked rating rationale, and there we have both the strengths and the weaknesses of the institution. So if we have been rating SKS over the past 3 or 4 years, we would have put quite strongly in the rating rationale that it was growing too fast and that its relationship with its customers was actually breaking down. Unfortunately, the way markets work, SKS became so big that the market wanted ratings from big rating agencies. Unfortunately, big rating agencies don't understand impact enterprises. They understand balance sheets. So SKS was rated on the basis of balance sheets rather than its relationship with customers. And that's where I believe things went wrong.
Do you see a similar trend potentially happening with non-microfinance-based impact enterprises as this market grows and more money comes into it?
Oh, well, if you know, as with any market, when there's a buzz in the air, when there's a lot of excitement, high growth can take place, and industries do overheat and boil over, and that's really what's happened in Indian microfinance. But it seems to me that in most impact investing sectors, that's still a long way off. This is what we said about microfinance 10 years ago, that it was a long way off. But as we approached the tipping point, everyone was so gung-ho and making lots of money and so on that they forgot that it is possible for an industry to overheat. It's like the internet enterprises in 99 to 2000, when people started to say things like, the internet has changed the laws of economics. You can never lose money in an internet-based investment. That's the point at which it's time to pull back. You know, and then similarly in the U.S. housing market, people started to say that house prices in the U.S. would never go down. The moment they started to say that, I think should have been a warning signal. So when we get to that in impact investing, we'll know that it's time to pull back.
Thank you, Sanjay. If there are no other questions, any other last comments that anybody would like to make, or Sanjay that you'd like to conclude with?
Well, if there aren't any questions, I'll just conclude by saying that you know, I think rating of impact enterprises is a professional tool. It can be used in a productive way, and if anyone's interested, I'd be happy to talk to them further about it by email or by Skype, and I'm happy to contribute to the growth and development of your enterprises in the interests of the kind of people that we're all trying to help, who are the low income populations of the countries where we live and work. So thank you, Tamsin, for the opportunity to talk to the participants in this webinar, and thank you to everyone who's taken the time to join us.
Thank you, everybody. And if you do have questions, we will be uploading the presentation onto the website, and also Sanjay's links to his website and obviously contact details. So if there are further questions, certainly, as you know, Nexii's requirements on listing would be some kind of certification and rating along with an impact profile, and M-CRIL really fits the bill for us on that. So thank you all for attending, and